Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us, whether you're live or you're Memorex. You're watching the archive and in the YouTube. This is my first live session on YouTube, so a lot of experimenting. It's going to be like the first time I started driving. You'd think about every move. Check the mirror, turn the signal on. There was no smoothness when I was driving, although I hope there is now. And hopefully within a week or two, we'll be kind of smooth here. I have a lot to talk about, a lot to cover in communication. It's one of the most used love muscles, or maybe even the most underused love muscles that we have available to us. We're going to be covering a couple of what I consider to be the three legs of communication that will give us more balance in whatever role we're in the communication um, relationship part, um, and how to be a little bit more upfront and transparent. I believe upfront, transparent, honest communication is the best way to go, um, especially the upfront part. A lot of people kind of lack in the upfront, but at the same time, I think you need to be honest without being hurtful, right? So we're going to be discussing some of those. Um, so let's get right to it. Every week, we're going to have a live love muscles, kind of like a workshop. You'll be able to come in, ask questions. I'm using StreamYard. This is the first time I've used it. Um, but when you type in a comment, I'll get notified. I'll be able to read them and share them. Um, and let's see what else I can do. I can put in little banners across the screen. So if I wanted to remind everybody to let us know where you're viewing from, if you're live, you can use the chat. Personally, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska this week, but I am going to be doing some traveling on Fridays, and I will be going across the country and we'll be live. So my bookshelf may change once in a while, but that's okay. I've read all those books anyway. Uh, so let's talk about communication and why it's so important. First, I want to talk about communication muscle and why it is so important and what it is. I think the communication muscle is a capacity to express ourselves clearly and honestly, both when we're talking and when we're listening, because even listening, you're able to express yourself honestly and upfront by the way you listen and the way your face listens. I only have one good ear, but I listen with my whole face, or what I call full face listening. You can use your eyebrows, you can use the shape of your mouth, your cheeks, your eyes, and you squint your eyes, even your voice. You might be able to say, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. And that's a listening component of communication. And of course, in the talking component, you definitely want to watch tone, speed, volume. So, tone, when I was a younger man, uh, a lot of my tone was sarcastic. It wasn't often loud, but it was sarcastic. So, tone is a big part. And then another part of communication that a lot of people just ignore is behavior. Um, in other words, the palm on the face. You're communicating something there, right? So I do believe that communication, the muscle of communication, has a lot of different aspects to it, but the main three are listening, uh, speaking, and behaviors, maybe not in that manner. Um, so those are important. I also think that communication, when we're expressing our needs or our desires to whether it be our children, which sometimes you need to repeat yourself, And thank you for being patient, which is another muscle, another love muscle. But expressing your needs to your partner and desires is very important. And the way you do that is also important. Listening, we've already talked about. Creating safety. Communication can really help create a safe space for anybody coming to you to land. And especially when your kids or your partner, when something's going on in their day and you recognize that, and you just ask questions, ask clarifying questions. Even if they don't answer you, at least they know they have a safe place. Don't be trying to fix things right away, but let them get it off their chest. A lot of times, as somebody's sharing a story with you to what's going on in their life, they're listening to their voice and maybe even curing what ails them because you were there holding space for them in a safe way. So that's a big part of communication. I believe that listening is the biggest part of communication. Behavior may be a close second. And in speaking, although we all want to speak, pick me, I want to talk. Um, Speaking isn't often the top one. And as you can tell right now, I'm probably not the best at speaking. So, why do we want to strengthen these communication muscles? I believe strongly that good communication reduces the friction and it lowers the amount of unnecessary conflicts. Pausing is a great communication tool. When I'm talking to somebody and they're a little on edge, I sense that. And when they say something, I don't have to answer them right away. Take a deep breath. It's strategic for the sake of the relationship to just pause for a minute, think about what they're saying. And even if you're not thinking about what they're saying, think about what you're going to say and how you're going to deliver what you say. Don't get your message lost in the delivery. So I think we build trust with consistency and transparency. I know a lot of people, and I used to do it too. I would script conversations and it would keep me awake at night. I would say, well, I'll say this. And then when they say this, I'll say this. The challenge with scripting your communication is the other person doesn't often get the script. Uh, I wish they would, because then maybe we could even rehearse, but that doesn't always happen. Um, Good communication honors your truth, but also respects the dignity of other people. And hopefully, even in an argument's sake, the goal of both parties is to it's a similar goal to meet the needs of everybody most effectively. So how do we exercise our communication muscles? I believe that we practice I statements. Again, when I was younger, I'd point my finger, and you've heard the saying, when you point your finger, there's three fingers pointing at you. But when I used to point my finger, I would say you, and that's not a great thing, because then I'd follow it with some kind of absolute. You never or you always, those aren't good. That's criticism, if you ask me. And I think complaining is okay when you practice I statements. I felt hurt when you didn't do this, like you said you were going to do. And I'd like us to work on it because I don't like feeling hurt. Do you? But that I statement doesn't put it all on the other person. And I think that's important with communication. And then check for understanding. You could check as a listener, am I understanding this correctly? Am I hearing you right? Or can you explain that a little bit better so I can understand it? Again, listening is like batting practice. The other person's got the bat and you're throwing off the hill. And you're just giving them a good pitch to hit, and that's where your ears are. so they could take batting practice and practice what it is they believe and what it is they understand. And then you'll have time to ask questions too. And then always be watching behaviors and, are their arms folded? Um, are their eyes sad? Uh, do they not respond right away? And some people are like that, but you can still give them a safe space. Say, hey, something's going on, and when you're ready, just let me know. I'm here for you. Um, so I think it's important that we do that. Again, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. Let's see. I made a couple of banners here. I want to talk to you about before we get too far. I've created a love muscle workbook. In fact, I am in the midst of creating a love muscle workbook for every love muscle. And this week, if you read me on Medium or follow me on any of the social platforms, I usually have a love muscle of the week. And this week it's communication. And for next week, just to let you know, if you're curious, that's great because next week is Curiosity Week. I think curiosity is one of the most fun love muscles, and we'll have a great time next week, both in the things I write and share, but also on the live stream every Friday at 10 o'clock in the middle of the day, 10 o'clock Central. So the Communication Love Muscle Workbook, I have a couple of screenshots that I want to show you. Oh, let me clean my screen up for a second. Okay, so the Love Muscles Workbook is a 20-page workbook that has uh, exercises, text. I'm going to show you some of these pages if I could find out where they are. And what's great is because I'm hidden behind the cover of the book, I could stick my tongue out, which is kind of like a form of communication. And you won't see me, but I just told you. So anyway, there's some text that's not in the Build Love Muscles course. There's some exercises that are not in the course, but they are in the workbook. It's totally unique content that I haven't published anywhere else. And that link is below in the description. So how do I hide that? Oh, I didn't stick out my tongue, did I? So anyway, that's the communication. I hear some giggling in the back row, and that's good. That's okay. The Communication and Love Muscles Workbook every week. They will be online and available. It's $9 as we grow more. I will package them together for a discount. Maybe $7 for $21 for 3, so it's a $7 average. Or they are going to be available in the Build Better Love Muscles course, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So one of the things I'm going to suggest, and I always suggest this when I was a house father with at-risk youth, journal your thoughts. Journal where you are. I used to tell the guys, have a forgiveness journal, have a mindfulness journal or a be present journal. And even in communication, we had this one young man who he was a hothead and he wasn't a redhead. I thought only redheads were hotheads because their brain's on fire. Okay, no comedy. But he would journal what made him angry. And as soon as he started journaling what made him angry, he got angry less and less. So I think journal prompts, which we'll have in the workbook, are very important. Communication isn't always about finding the right words. It's about creating an environment where truth can be spoken and received with care. I think, like any other muscle, if we can get better at communication, it's going to grow stronger. But if we don't get better, um, it could become, what's the word for a muscle stop working? Apathy? No, that's joy stopping to work. Oh, I can't think of the word now. And I'm a writer. Anyway, if you don't use the muscle, it's going to stop. It'll strain a relationship and maybe even pull other muscles. Hi from Houston, Michelle. Great to have you here. Thank you. Um, so I think it's important that our communication creates a safe space. And in fact, I'm going to, if you're on Medium, I write an article a day on Medium, and tomorrow I'm going to be releasing book recommendations. I do that every Saturday, and tomorrow is going to be some book recommendations. I don't think I put them in the description below, but they will be online, and I'll make sure there's a free link. So if you're not a Medium member, you can go and find the article and maybe find some more reading material if you don't order the workbook. And why wouldn't you, right? So we have an hour. What am I going to talk about for an hour? I got 45 more minutes. Let's talk about what happens when you don't have good communication. I've been with people, coworkers, part of a management team. I've been with romantic partners where sometimes they just didn't communicate. And to my detriment, I allowed that to make my wheels in my brain spin. And I would start assuming and I would start wondering. I've since learned that that's out of my control. And if they choose not to talk, that's on them. I will create the safe space, but if I can't control what they say or what they choose not to say. But knowing that if I stay silent, if I stay quiet and something's bothering me, I'm going to really invite the other person to start assuming and to start wondering and to start imagining. So I really insist is a good word for me. I insist for my sake that if something's going on, I'm going to choose the most humble, honest, soft way to deliver what's going on with me so that the other person knows. And I'll tell you what, I'd rather be upfront and honest and transparent and honest without being hurtful and go through a few hours, maybe even overnight, with the other person kind of pinched or ouched. They have a heartfelt boo-boo overnight than to go weeks of them assuming and weeks and months of silence. That's not healthy. So for me, I'd rather find ways to be honest, upfront, and transparent in a safe and non-hurtful way. And then if I've made a mistake in that type of communication, I can learn from it. In fact, I could even ask about it. If I say something and they react poorly, when things calm down, I will bring it up and I'll say, so what hurt the most and what can I do to still let you know how I feel and not let it hurt so much? What do I need to do to make sure that you're also in a good place? So that's important. If we don't communicate well, we're going to. Sorry, there's a note on my phone. I also publish other people's articles on Medium. So if you want to join Medium, I don't get a dime, but I get to read all your words first. because I am a publisher on Reaching Hearts. Um, so let's talk a little bit about Build Better Love Muscles, the course. So we have a course. I've just created it. I launched it maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, and boy, that's a lot of content. And all these courses are like they're coming out from all corners of the earth on all subjects of the earth. In fact, I took part in a course to learn how to build a course, and I took part in a course to learn how to go live here. And I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you watching, even if it's on the recording. So I want to talk to you about the Build a Better Love Muscles course. I have been working with love muscles for decades. Um, it all started with a faith love muscle. I was at a conference of ministry leaders, and I said, faith is like a muscle. And if we're not exercising our faith, we're going to lose our faith. It's going to get weaker. And since then, I've been working with love muscles. I've found over 40, and I just found three more. Not found. I just realized that there's three more. This morning, I was reading an article that I published that somebody else wrote on grief. And I started asking myself, is grief a love muscle? I think it is, because grief touches our heart. Um, and everybody does it different, but I believe I'm not going to talk too much about that today because I'm still kind of stirring the pot in my brain about how grief is a love muscle and how we can make grief a positive strength. But anyway, that's not yet in the course, but as soon as I can create some good content around grief, I might add that into the course. Last week was calm. Calm is a love muscle. And I found that calm is a really big love muscle and an important one, especially if you have kids. So I believe that if you're committed to loving better, uh, the love muscle course is important. If you want to deepen your connections, strengthen your relationships, it's a self-paced course. And the website I put on the screen there is learn.buildbetterlovemuscles.com. Going there will give you a better idea of what the course is like. And there's videos, there's workbooks, there's handouts. What I call a handout, you just print out, it's a PDF. It's not like the handouts I've put online for free, immediate, that I've used Google Docs for here on YouTube or other places. But you'll learn how to communicate clearly. You'll learn how to listen deeply, be more patient, kind, forgiving. And the great thing about having over 40 love muscles is while your relationship, and really relationships mean romantic relationships, but also working relationships, relationship with your neighbor, and your neighbor whose tree hangs over your fence. That's a relationship, and you got to use your love muscles, whether you don't love them or not. And I think you should, but um, that's another video. I believe every relationship we need to exercise our muscles, because I drive around every morning and every afternoon in a commute, and I'm saying, wow, those people aren't using any love muscles. They're not even using driving muscles sometimes. But again, no comedy, I promised. So, what kind of questions do you have about um, communication? How's communication going on in your life? And how do you strengthen? Is your communication muscle strong? Because it can be with a little bit of exercise. So let's take a look at the anatomy of the communication love muscle. It's almost like taking x-rays of our communication love. You know, all the love muscles are connected too, right? Yeah. So we've already talked about our verbal communication and our nonverbal communication. That's body language, facial expressions, gestures. I was in a meeting one time, probably 30 years ago now, and we had a conference call, and speakerphone was on the table. Zoom hadn't even been thought of yet. In fact, uh, some of the other online videos hadn't even been thought. So we had a speakerphone, and there were 10 people in our office, and somebody on the other end in another state, and they said something that I thought was ridiculous. And I looked at the other people in my office and I went, and I got chastised pretty good by my boss. After the call, he pulled me into his office and he said, "What were you thinking?" I said, "Well, I didn't say anything." He goes, "But you did. You said something to everybody else in the room without using words." So it's important. I learned from that my face and my body language does communicate. Even if I didn't say anything, I communicated something wrong, something unfair to that person who didn't even see that I did it. Maybe he heard about it, but am I back? Hi, I think I'm back. Thank you for your patience. This has been a test of the patience muscle system. Yay! Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So where was I? I don't know, but we're going to pick it right back up. So one of the things I find people struggling with in communication is there's a few. Um, wow, look at all the comments. Michelle, you're fantastic. Thank you so much. Um, and the rest of you are fantastic too. But thank you, Michelle, for letting me know what was going on. I think that the four main fears that block communication is number one, a fear of complacency. And I think the antidote for that fear is to become more curious. I'm a big fan of curiosity. Uh, in fact, you'll learn next week that I think when we mix imagination and curiosity together, we have imaginosity. But that's another thing. I mix that up a lot. Imagination and curiosity is imaginosity. But I think in relationships, if we're curious about the people we're with, and I don't mean like what's going on with that person. Although I recently learned a term, wonder and look under. You can do that in a discreet way without making it look like you're digging. Um, but I think if we're curious and even close to being fascinated to our other person, whether it be a coworker, uh, a partner, our children, um, our neighbor with the tree hanging over our fence, if we're curious about them, it shows that we care. We give a hoot about what's important in their life. And when we can do that, we're showing love. Um, when I go to the store, I try to get there early in the morning. But still, there's a lot of people there early in the morning. I used to love it when they were open 24 hours a day because I'm an early riser, well before sunrise. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, nobody would be at the store. But there are people at the store now, and I try to show them care and love and delight. I think joy and delight is very contagious. So I try to show that, and I try to be curious without being nosy, right? But in your partner, in your romantic partner, your kids, you can be curious instead of just saying, "How'd your day go? Um, was it a good day?" I try to get a little bit more specific in my questions. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Or who did you help today and how? I'm looking for ideas, right? That that kind of curiosity can just pump somebody up, and they can think and say, "Yeah, I did some good stuff today. Here's what they are." And then I get to listen, right? That's communication. That's why I think communication is one of the most important love muscles. So if in our body, if the legs and thighs and the glutes are our really strong, important foundational muscles, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, but I think they are. Communication's pretty much our legs, or maybe our glutes, and some of our communication. Anyway, no comedy. I think uh, the other fear we have in communication is a fear of judgment, a fear of backlash. I know I've had this. Um, I used to be in charge of a senior citizen community, and there were 300 seniors that lived there, and we treated them like kings and queens because they deserved that, and so do you, by the way. And then there was plenty of employees, and I knew sometimes what I had to say would not go over well, and I would say right up front, I'm finding this to be a little bit difficult to say, but still, it needs to be said. So I'm just going to say it, okay? And I'd say it, but I'd use the preamble of I'm having difficulty in finding what to say or how to say it as a way to soften things up. So I think our not wanting to be judged and not wanting the conflict are two fears. I also think these days, um, hopefully you're not in that situation I'm about to say, but I've heard this term situationship is a big popular type of non-relationship gathering. Maybe that's friends with benefits. Maybe it's a no commitment relationship, which is that a relationship? Anyway, um, I think those are that situationship is one area where if we talk about hard stuff, we might lose that person. Now, I don't know where you are, but for me, I don't think I'd ever get involved in a situationship. I mean, love them when they're there with you. And when that time is done, love them afterwards too, but maybe not as intentional and as intense. Um, so I think the fear of losing the other person is one reason we don't communicate. And I think the fear of losing somebody may be a reason to communicate that very fear. And this is why I say communication needs to be uh, holding a safe space for the other person, but also creating a safe space for ourselves. Um, I don't, I might go off on a little rabbit trail here, but I believe loving yourself is a key to having good love with somebody else, whether it be romantic or friend or family member, coworker. If you don't love yourself, you're going to be seeking validation from the other person. Validate yourself so that you make space for love and you make space for peace and you make space for all the other good things that loving can provide. Um, I think breaking through these fears happens one conversation or one iteration at a time. Conversation doesn't always happen with a speaker and a listener. Sometimes conversation is how you hold yourself in proximity and how they hold themselves in proximity. I could be working with somebody right across the office from me in a desk, and maybe we don't share a lot of words, but we can tell there's peace, and there's calm, and there's joy, and that's a conversation or an iteration of communicating. And I think that's also part of it. So I think today I know we had a glitch, and I'm going to call my internet provider and say something soft and something calm and say, hey, it's important because now I'm going to publish this video with the gap. Thankfully, I can edit out the gap. Um, thank you. And Michelle, I want to thank you for coming. And those of you who came in and left during the glitch, I want to thank you as well. I've had a good time. We've got 20 minutes left. What do I do now? I guess I can ad lib. So one of the things I do is I write a lot. I get up early in the morning. I've written a couple of books. I'm writing another one. You probably won't be surprised. It's called Build Better Love Muscles. Um, I get on something and I go for a long time. I've had 3 lifetimes. Anyway, I write on Substack once a week. I write on Medium once a day. I have 3 YouTube videos a week. I'm working harder now than I ever have, but I get up pretty early in the morning and I get a lot of work done before anybody else wakes up. So that's helpful. I want to talk about complaining and criticizing. For a long time, I used to say complaining is draining. And then with all of my customer service work in senior living, I ended up embracing the complaining. And I'd say complaining is training. And to criticize would be to downsize. So complaining is training. If somebody complains to you in a conversation, maybe there's an argument going on, as long as, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, as long as the complaining is trying to reach a common goal, maybe it's to get the dishes clean. If I'm complaining and saying, I don't mind doing the dishes. It hurts me when I'm doing the dishes and you're sitting watching whatever you're watching. I would love some help because I feel that when you don't help and when you just ignore me, I feel like my time is invaluable. In fact, it's not my time. It's time cleaning up after you. So could I get some help? It would help me to know that you're helpful. How can we do this and when can we start? And I deliver it soft, honest, but not hurtful. Now, criticizing is almost antagonistic. It's rarely soft. And even when we say constructive criticism, it's often with absolutes. You never do this. I'm the one that's always cleaning the dishes, and all you ever do. Those absolutes can be hurtful. So I believe that complaining in a soft, honest, loving way can help communication, remembering that there's a common goal. Let's fix the problem together. If we look at our relationships as competitive, I don't know if I'd even call it a relationship. I mean, there is. I mean, if I'm talking and you're listening, or vice versa, um, there's some sort of connection there. But I don't know if it's healthy if all we ever do is compete with each other. So, uh, anyway, what else should we talk about? I think we're done. Um, Thank you for coming. Remember, the communication workbook is in the description below. Build Better Love Muscles is a growing course. I keep adding to it. Um, and I'm getting stronger every day with my love, I hope. And I hope you are too. So I'm going to say we almost made it for an hour. That technical glitch kind of threw me a little bit, but that's okay. We're kind of ad-libbing. When I first started thinking about doing this, I said I was going to launch it on July 4th. And I said, why not tomorrow? So I thought about this on Wednesday and I launched it. And I'll be doing one every week. Oh, there's a new comment. Oh, thank you for taking your time out of your day. I sure appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope I see you again next week. And I hope I see you again all over the place. And if I do, I'll probably blow you a kiss. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. This is Mike Sansone, Rhymes with Minestrone. We'll talk to you later. How do I stop this thing? Are there brakes on this car? Thank you. Have a great day.